Well everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the Samsung Galaxy S24 Plus and compare it against the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra and see which particular phone is a better one for you. Now both these phones are very interesting because they are slightly different, but they are still very good devices that I love a lot. So let's go and see how both these phones compare. Now if you want to pick up either one of these devices, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there and you can help support the channel at the same time. Now starting off with the outside of both these phones, the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, which came out last year, or in 2023, early last year, basically had a 6.8-inch dynamic AMOLED display. It was a very good panel. I was a very big fan of this panel when it first came out, and I still think it's a very good looking device for the most part. I think if I'm going to go ahead and buy a phone, I definitely want it to look something like this. I mean, you're getting 1750 nits of peak brightness, a 120Hz display, a curved glass display too, which some people may actually prefer. And overall, it was a very good panel when it first came out, and I still think it's an excellent panel for sure. Like I said, it doesn't really get like that much crazy better than this thing. Like of course panels have gotten brighter and everything, but for how old this, I mean it's only a year old, but for like it recycling the design of the S22 Ultra, it's still a very good, beautiful phone that I'm a humongous fan of for sure. Now with the S24 Plus, you are now getting a 6.7-inch dynamic LTPO AMOLED display, so it's slightly smaller than the S23 Ultra, but you are still maintaining 120Hz display. It's also a 1440p display too, which is nice. It's not a curved panel, which honestly some people actually prefer, but the big thing here is that it is giving you a 2600 nits of peak brightness display on that particular phone. So you are getting a higher brightness inside of that phone than the S23 Ultra. So if it's a big deal to you, then that's one thing. If it's not a big deal to you, then who cares? But if you're always in the sunlight and if you're, in that specific phrase, then you're definitely going to be getting a much better performing device in almost every single way inside of the S24 Plus's panel than the S23 Ultra. But like I said, I do like how the S23 Ultra has that curved side to it, like it has, has curved glass, which is a nice touch, but regardless, that's how both these phones kind of look like from that particular perspective. Now on top of that, they both have USB Type-C ports on the bottom, which is great. I love having USB-C, and that's kind of essentially what's going on, with these particular devices from that standpoint. You're still getting the S Pen on the S23 Ultra, which is also a very nice touch. Having an S Pen is one of the coolest things ever on these types of devices, and I love having an S Pen, and that's something that's going on for this particular device too. So from that perspective, it definitely gets a thumbs up for me for sure. Now on top of that, on the backside, you are getting frosted glass backs on both these phones, which again is super nice. Like I say this all the time, I love having frosted glass backs, and these two devices kill it from that particular perspective because they feel and look very good. Like I'm humongous fans of these two devices from that standpoint. Now you are getting wireless charging, reverse wireless charging on both phones. You're getting IP certification on both phones as well. And I will tell you from the outside of both, I'm a massive fan of both these devices. Like I think they look and feel very good. And without a doubt, they're very good devices on the outside. In terms of pricing though, this is another interesting thing. The Samsung Galaxy S24 Plus right now in the brand new market is, more expensive than a lot of phones right now because it's like almost $1,000 phone. The S23 Ultra in the used market is actually cheaper than the S24 Plus. So you can get last year's flagship for, last year's like main flagship for cheaper than the, S24 Plus, at least in the used market. So that's one thing that may be a big advantage for some people. If you wanted to go and buy one of those phones, something like the S24 Plus may be, more expensive for some people than the S23 Ultra. So that right there is like one thing to keep in mind. Again, it's not the biggest deal in the world, but that was just one thing to keep in mind there too, is the pricing strategy between both these devices. Now, in terms of the camera side of things, this is also another interesting thing going on here. So with both these phones, you're getting a little bit of a different system for the most part. With the S23 Ultra, you're getting a 200 megapixel wide angle lens, 10 megapixel periscope telephoto lens, another 10 megapixel telephoto lens, and then a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera. With the S24 Plus, you're getting a 50 megapixel wide angle lens, 10 megapixel telephoto lens, and then a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera. The thing I can definitely tell you about both these lenses is that there's a lot of capability and a lot of quality between both of them. You're getting 8K capability on both of them, which is great, and you're getting 4K at 60 on the front. It doesn't really get that much crazier better than these two phones from that particular perspective, because you are still getting very good quality phones and very good phones in general from both these, which is amazing. The big thing to keep in mind is that the S23 Ultra is probably going to be giving you the overall better phone as far as I can tell. Like that type of device is going to be giving you just the better camera system, has a higher megapixel count, and I do think it's probably the overall better camera when it comes down to it. The thing you have to keep in mind though is that with the Samsung Galaxy S24 Plus, Samsung did kind of say something very interesting here. They did basically say that with this particular device, you are essentially getting, this is the big thing, you're essentially getting better performance in social media applications. So instead of those apps like TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram, they did kind of say those are going to perform better on that phone, but even that's not the biggest deal in the world. But once again, that's just one other thing to keep in mind here. That would not be the reason why I'd go and upgrade, is because of the camera, but it is a very interesting thing kind of going on here as well. So keep that in mind. That's just kind of all I have to say about these particular phones from the camera side of things. Now moving on to our big thing, which is basically software longevity. In my opinion, this is probably the main reason why you'd want to go from something like the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra to the S24 Plus. Samsung has just basically stated that they're going to be giving us essentially 7 years of software and security updates on the Samsung Galaxy S24 Plus and S24 series in general than the S23 Ultra. So that is something that's very crazy. So if I'm about to go ahead and basically go, get a device, I want it to last as long as possible. And that's basically what's going on in this particular case. You're essentially going to be getting, the longer lasting phone from the S24 Plus in every single way, which is crazy. That's something I love to see on these types of devices. And that's something that I love on these particular phones as well. So if I'm going to buy a phone, I want it to have as great of a quality as possible. And that's essentially what's going on with the Samsung Galaxy S24 Plus. It's going to last a much longer period of time than the S23 Ultra. On top of that, this is another big thing, performance. In my opinion, there really wouldn't be a reason why I would go and upgrade from the S23 Ultra to the S24 Plus or vice versa based on performance. They are like neck and neck in a lot of different ways. So with the S24 Plus, you're getting that Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 chipset inside with 12 gigabytes of RAM. With the S23 Ultra, you're getting that 8 gigabyte of RAM option at the base model or 12 gigs of RAM if you go up to the top tier model. This is something that might be a big deal for some people. Because if you're wanting that phone that has more RAM, base model wise, you're going to be getting more RAM on the S24 Plus. But if you want to spend more money on the S23 Ultra, you can get the same amount of RAM option, but it's going to cost you more money, which is probably going to cost roughly around the same as an S24 Plus, or at least closer to that price tag. Performance-wise though, chipset-wise, there's obviously a lot of overlap. They're both Snapdragon. It's not like we're comparing the Tensor or A series from Apple to this one, but I will tell you, between Snapdragons, there's always incremental improvements. The Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 on paper is going to be a faster phone than the S23 Ultra's, 8 Gen 2, but it's going to be neck and neck for almost every single thing you'd ever do on a particular phone. So things like, opening up applications, playing games, responding to people's texts, video editing, whatever you can imagine on a phone. If the S23 Ultra can do it, the S24 Plus can do it, and vice versa. So you're going to be getting very solid experience from both these devices, which I think is a really cool thing. The only thing, or maybe only disadvantage I would say with the S24 Plus is maybe with that Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, it hasn't had that most amount of time to be optimized like the 8 Gen 2, but that's a small thing. You're definitely going to be getting very good performance from both these devices without a doubt. So to kind of sum it up, what I'll definitely tell you is both these devices are very good. They are neck and neck, and I probably wouldn't recommend people to buy one phone over the other like a vast majority of reasons, but I would tell you, for the most part, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 inside of the, Galaxy S24 Plus is a decent upgrade, but the biggest upgrade is the software longevity. By getting that longer lasting phone on the, S24 Plus, that is a very big upgrade, and that's something that I look at with that particular phone as it being the better phone overall than the S24 Ultra or S23 Ultra. But if I'm still having the S23 Ultra for a couple of years, that phone is perfectly fine. I wouldn't really go and upgrade or side grade to these. But if you're coming from neither one, the S24 Plus is probably going to be the better phone for a vast majority of people. But I think the S23 Ultra is still a very tremendous phone. That's like almost a 9 out of 10 if the S24 Plus was a 10 out of 10. That one's like a 9.5 out of 10, and it beats the S24 Plus in some ways too. So that kind of covers it out there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.